Pay attention to the young woman seated on the couch at the hotel reception. She is 19-year-old Sophie Laurent. She is here with her 41-year-old boyfriend, Thomas Kerr. He has promised to help her start a new life, away from her parents and hometown. This hotel meeting is the first step. A couple of minutes later, they are headed to room 314, both looking happy. She did not know it yet, but this was the last time she would be seen.
Her name was Sophie Laurent. She was 19 years old. And she met a Hells Angels member online. Days later, she vanished. This is her story. And it will destroy you. Before we begin, if this case makes you feel something, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel. And comment below telling me where you're watching from. Because stories like Sophie's need to be heard everywhere. They need to be remembered everywhere. Now let's talk about how a motorcycle club member groomed, murdered, and buried a teenager. And how he almost got away with it. Look at this security camera footage. March 15, 2011. A hotel in Helsingør, Denmark. Watch that girl walking through the entrance. She's wearing nice clothes. She brought an overnight bag. She looks nervous but excited. That's Sophie Laurent. 19 years old. She thinks she's about to meet someone who will save her. Someone who promised her freedom. Someone she's been talking to online for 2 months. Now look at the man checking in at the reception desk. Leather vest. Tattoos visible on his forearms. He's calm. Methodical. Like he's done this before. His name is Thomas Kerr. He's 41 years old. And he's a member of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. Sophie has no idea what's about to happen in room 314. She has no idea that in 72 hours, her mother will be screaming at police to find her daughter's body. She has no idea she's already dead. This is the last footage of Sophie Laurent alive. Watch them walk toward the elevator together. Watch how small she looks next to him. Watch how she trusts him completely. In 10 minutes, they'll be in that hotel room. In 24 hours, she'll be wrapped in a bedspread in the trunk of his car. In 3 weeks, she'll be in a shallow grave in the forest. And it all started with an online message. March 16, 2011. Evening. Sophie Laurent's mother, Anne, is sitting by the phone waiting for a call that will never come. Sophie promised she'd check in. Sophie always keeps her promises. But the phone doesn't ring. And tries Sophie's cell phone. Straight to voicemail. She tries again. Voicemail. She tries a third time. Voicemail. Night falls. Sophie's bedroom door stays closed. And opens it. The bed is perfectly made. Sophie's laptop is still on the desk where she left it. The charger is plugged into the wall. What kind of person runs away from home and leaves their laptop? What kind of person starts a new life without taking their phone charger? And Laurent knows something is catastrophically wrong. A mother knows. March 17th, morning. And drives to the Vidover police station. She files a missing person report. And you know what they tell her? They tell her Sophie is 19. Legally an adult. They tell her Sophie has a history of depression. They tell her Sophie dropped out of school last year. They tell her this is probably just teenage rebellion. They actually suggest that Sophie ran away with a boyfriend and will come back when she's ready. Go home and wait, they say. She'll turn up. And Laurent doesn't go home and wait. Because Laurent knows her daughter. And she knows something terrible has happened. And Laurent goes straight back home. She goes into Sophie's bedroom. She sits down at that desk. And she opens her daughter's laptop. She's looking for answers. And what she finds makes her blood run cold. Emails. Hundreds of them. Messages. Chat logs. All from the same person. Someone calling himself Mad Dog. And starts reading from the beginning. And with every message, she understands more about how they got her daughter. The first message is dated January 18, 2011. Almost 2 months before Sophie disappeared. That's how long he'd been working on her. 2 months of daily contact. 2 months of building trust. 2 months of psychological manipulation. He told Sophie he was a member of the Hells Angels. He made it sound exciting. Dangerous. Romantic. He told her about motorcycle runs and brotherhood and freedom. He promised her money. He promised her an apartment in Germany. He promised her escape from her parents, from her depression, from her small town. He promised her everything a desperate 19-year-old wants to hear. And in every single message, he told her the same thing: keep this secret. Don't tell your parents. Don't tell your friends. This is just between us. The club doesn't like outsiders knowing our business. That's textbook grooming. Isolation. Secrecy. Creating a private world where the predator is the only reality. And scrolls through 2 months of manipulation. 2 months of lies. 2 months of a grown man in a motorcycle gang building trust with a vulnerable teenager. And then she finds the last message. Sent March 15, 2011. 1 p.m. I'm at the hotel in Helsingør. Room is booked. Come when you're ready. Remember, don't tell anyone. This is our fresh start. Mad Dog. The hotel name is in the message thread. Havnegade Budget Hotel. And Lauren prints every single message. She puts them in a folder. She drives back to that police station. And she puts the folder on the desk in front of them. March 18th. The case is reclassified. This is no longer a runaway teenager. This is a criminal investigation. And they have a lead. Detectives drive 45 kilometers north to Helsingør. They walk into the Havnegade Budget Hotel with a warrant. They want every record from March 15th. They want all security footage. They want everything. The hotel manager pulls up the registration system. Room 314. Checked in March 15th, 2:30 p.m. Name on the registration, Thomas Kier. Age, 41. Single occupant. But there's an address listed. And when police run that address through their database, it comes back connected to a known Hells Angels clubhouse in Roskilde. They have a name. They have an address. They have a motorcycle gang connection. Now they need to see the footage. Security camera, lobby angle, timestamp 2:40 p.m. Sophie Lauren enters alone. She sits in the lobby waiting area. She keeps checking her phone. She's nervous. Timestamp 2:48 p.m. Thomas Kier enters. He's wearing a leather vest with patches. Hells Angels insignia visible. He goes to the front desk. He checks in. He gets his key card. He turns and walks over to Sophie. She stands up. She actually smiles at him. They walk to the elevator together. Third floor hallway camera, timestamp 2:52 p.m. Sophie and Thomas Kier walk down the corridor. They reach room 314. The door opens. They go inside. The door closes. Investigators fast forward the footage. They watch the hallway camera for hours. They watch the lobby camera. They watch the elevator. They watch every single exit. Sophie Lauren never comes back out. But Thomas Kier does. March 16th, 1:20 p.m. He exits alone. He's carrying a large duffel bag. He walks out the front entrance. He gets into a dark blue Volkswagen. And he drives away. Where is Sophie Lauren? March 20th, 2011. Police locate Thomas Kier at his residence in Roskilde. The address is connected to a Hells Angels clubhouse. He lives in an apartment above the club's meeting space. He's brought in for questioning. Voluntary. Not under arrest. Not yet. The detective starts simple. Do you know Sophie Lauren? Thomas Kier leans back in his chair. He looks completely calm. He says no. Never heard that name. Don't know anyone named Sophie. The detective slides a photograph across the table. It's a still image from the hotel security camera. Sophie and Thomas standing together in the lobby. His Hells Angels vest is clearly visible. Kier looks at the photo. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't panic. His story changes immediately. Oh, that's Sophie. Yeah, I know her. Met her online. We were chatting for a while. She wanted to get away from her parents. I said I'd help her out. Give her some advice. The detective asks, what happened in room 314? Kier's answer is smooth. Rehearsed. Like he knew this conversation was coming. We talked for a few hours. She had this fantasy about running away to Germany. Starting over. She thought I could help her. She thought the club could help her. I told her it doesn't work like that. She got upset. We argued. Around 8 o'clock that night, she got pissed off and left. Just walked out. I figured she went home. I stayed the night because I'd already paid for the room. Checked out the next morning. That's it. The detective leans forward. Thomas, we have security footage of every exit in that building. We've reviewed every single frame from March 15th and March 16th. You left. Sophie Lauren did not. She never exited that building. Thomas Kier says nothing. His expression doesn't change. He just sits there. After several seconds of silence, he asks for a lawyer. The interview ends. He's allowed to leave. They don't have enough evidence to arrest him. Not yet. Here's the problem. It's March 19th when police identify room 314 as the crime scene. 4 full days after Sophie disappeared. You know what happens in 4 days at a budget hotel? The room gets cleaned. Twice. New guests check in. People sleep in that bed. People use that bathroom. People touch everything. Room 314 was cleaned on March 16th, immediately after Thomas Kier checked out. New guests stayed there March 17th, different guests stayed there March 18th. The crime scene is completely contaminated. But forensic investigators don't give up. March 21st. They seal the room. They bring in equipment. UV lights. Luminol. High-intensity lamps. Chemical sprays that react to biological material. To the naked eye, the room looks spotless. Clean sheets. Vacuumed carpet. Fresh towels. Like nothing ever happened there. But forensic science doesn't trust eyes. They close the curtains. They turn off the lights. They spray luminol across the bathroom floor. And the floor lights up. Bright blue fluorescence. Blood. They spray the bed frame. The wooden headboard near where the pillows would be. More blue light. More blood. They swab everything. They collect samples. They bag evidence. They send it to the laboratory with a rush priority code. 48 hours later, March 23, the DNA results come back. The blood in room 314 belongs to Sophie Laurent. Thomas Keir said Sophie got upset and walked out. Thomas Keir said they just argued and she left. Thomas Keir lied. Sophie Laurent bled in that room. She was injured in that room. Something violent happened in that room, and a Hells Angels member knows exactly what. March 23. The same day the blood results come back. Police bring in a K-09 unit. A cadaver dog specifically trained to detect the scent of human decomposition. These dogs are incredible. They can smell death through concrete, through soil, through water, through time itself. If Sophie Laurent's body was in that room, this dog will know. The handler walks the dog through room 314. The dog sniffs methodically. The bathroom where the blood was found. Nothing. The bed where the struggle clearly occurred. Nothing. The window. The walls. The corners. Nothing. The dog moves toward the closet near the entrance door. The empty closet where hotel guests hang their clothes. And the dog sits. Alert position. Definitive indication. The scent of death is in that closet. Human decomposition. Recent. But the closet is empty. The entire room is empty. So where is Sophie Laurent? The answer becomes horrifyingly clear to investigators. Her body was hidden in that closet temporarily. Probably overnight while Thomas Keir waited for the right moment to move her. Police review the security footage again. Every camera angle. Every timestamp. Front entrance, camera functioning. Side entrance, camera functioning. Main stairwell, camera functioning. Elevator, camera functioning. Rear service exit, no camera. Broken for months according to hotel maintenance records. That's how he did it. Thomas Keir murdered Sophie Laurent in room 314. He hid her body in the closet. He waited until darkness. And then he carried her out through the unmonitored rear exit. He put her in his vehicle. And he drove away with her body. Now they need to find that car. March 22. Police get a search warrant. They impound Thomas Keir's dark blue Volkswagen Passat from the clubhouse parking area in Roskilde. They transport it to a forensic examination garage. Other Hells Angels members watch the car get towed. They don't say anything. They just watch. The forensic team begins their examination. The interior of the car is suspiciously clean. The seats look recently wiped down. The floor mats are spotless. It smells like cleaning chemicals. Someone scrubbed this car thoroughly. But they didn't scrub the trunk. Forensic technicians open the trunk. They photograph everything. Then they begin collecting evidence. And they find 3 categories of material that will destroy Thomas Keir's story completely. Category 1, biological evidence. Long blonde hair. Multiple strands. They're embedded in the trunk carpet lining. They're caught in the weather stripping. Microscopic analysis and DNA testing confirm identity. The hair belongs to Sophie Laurent. Category 2, trace evidence. Textile fibers. Dozens of them scattered throughout the trunk. These fibers don't match Sophie's clothing. The laboratory analyzes them. Color, beige and brown striped pattern. Material, polyester cotton blend. Thread count, 180. They compare the fibers to samples from the Havnegade budget hotel. The fibers are from the bedspread. The bedspread that was reported missing from room 314. Thomas Keir wrapped Sophie Laurent's body in a hotel bedspread. He carried her to his car. He put her in his trunk. And fibers from that bedspread are now physical evidence. Category 3, geological evidence. Soil samples. Dirt embedded deep in the trunk carpet. More dirt on a folding shovel found in the back seat. The forensic geologist analyzes the composition. Mineral content. Organic matter. Particle size distribution. This isn't ordinary dirt. The soil doesn't match Roskilde where Thomas Keir lives. It doesn't match Helsinger where the hotel is located. This soil comes from somewhere else. Somewhere specific. The analysis identifies characteristics consistent with lakeside forest areas in North Zealand. High peat content. Decomposed birch leaves. Freshwater clay sediment. Thomas Keir's car has been to a 3rd location. An unknown location. A rural location. And he brought a shovel. You understand what that means? Sophie Loren's hair is in his trunk. The hotel bedspread he wrapped her in left fibers in his trunk. And soil from what is almost certainly her burial site is in his trunk. March 24, 2011. Thomas Keir is arrested at the Hells Angels clubhouse in Roskilde. He's formally charged with the murder of Sophie Loren. Other club members watch the arrest. Nobody interferes. Nobody says a word. Because even in the Hells Angels, there are lines you don't cross. And murdering a 19-year-old girl crosses every line. Thomas Keir sits in a holding cell for 5 days. Detectives interrogate him in shifts. Hours and hours of questioning. He maintains his story. Sophie left the hotel alive. He doesn't know where she is. He didn't hurt her. They show him the blood evidence from room 314. He doesn't break. They show him the cadaver dog results. He doesn't break. They show him photographs of her hair in his trunk. The fibers. The soil samples. They lay every piece of evidence on the table in front of him. March 29, day 6 of custody. His composure finally cracks. His lawyer is present. The interview is recorded. And Thomas Keir changes his story for the second and final time. He admits Sophie Loren died in room 314. But it was an accident. A terrible accident. His version, they were having consensual sex. Things got rough. Sophie started to panic. She started screaming. He tried to calm her down. He needed to keep her quiet because other guests might hear. He put his hands on her throat. Just to calm her. Just to make her stop screaming. And she stopped breathing. He panicked. He didn't know what to do. So he waited until late at night. He wrapped her body in the bedspread. He carried her out through the rear exit. He put her in his trunk. He drove away. The confession confirms everything investigators theorized. The hotel room. The closet. The rear exit. The vehicle. The bedspread. It all fits perfectly. But then the detective asks the most critical question: where is she now? Where did you take her body? Thomas Keir closes his mouth. He looks at his lawyer. He looks back at the detective. And he refuses to answer. He admits to killing her. He admits to moving her body. But he will not reveal where she is. That refusal is calculated. Without Sophie's body, his accident during sex story might be believable. Without her body, the medical examiner can't disprove his version of events. Without her body, he might get away with manslaughter instead of murder. Sophie Loren is dead. Her killer has confessed. But she's still missing. And Thomas Keir is the only person who knows where she is. Investigators subpoena Thomas Keir's cell phone records. They focus on a specific time window, March 16, 1:30 a.m. to 6 a.m. The hours after he left the hotel with Sophie's body. Cell phones communicate with towers constantly. Every call. Every text. Every data connection. Even when idle, phones ping nearby towers. Each ping is recorded. Each ping has a location. They map his movements. His phone doesn't travel south toward Roskilde, toward his home, toward the clubhouse. Instead, it travels north from Helsingør. It follows Route 6 along the coast. The pings track his phone moving deeper into North Zealand, heading toward Gilleleage. The data defines a geographic search area. Remote forest regions. Lakes. Coastal wilderness. Places where someone could bury a body without being seen. Search teams deploy. They bring cadaver dogs. They comb through forested areas near the tower pings. They look for disturbed soil. Unusual vegetation patterns. Anything out of place. Days pass. Then a week. Then 2 weeks. Nothing. The search continues. Because somewhere in those forests, Sophie Loren is waiting to be found. And on April 5, 2011, exactly 3 weeks after she disappeared, someone finds her. A groundskeeper named Henrik is working at Gerso. It's a secluded lake about 12 kilometers inland from Helsingør. Dense birch forest. Few visitors. Peaceful and quiet. Henrik is clearing fallen branches near the water's edge. Spring maintenance work. Routine. And he notices something wrong. There's a mound of soil that doesn't look natural. It's been disturbed recently. Turned over. The color is different from the surrounding ground. And there's a smell. Faint but unmistakable. Henrik has worked in these forests for 20 years. He knows what death smells like. He calls the police immediately. Officers arrive within 2 hours. They bring the forensic team. They bring excavation equipment. They bring the medical examiner. They begin digging carefully. At a depth of approximately 1 meter, the shovels hit something solid. Something large wrapped in black plastic sheeting. They clear away the soil carefully. They cut through the plastic. Inside is a duffel bag. Secured with duct tape. They open the bag. Sophie Loren is inside. She's still wrapped in the beige and brown striped bedspread from the Havnegade budget hotel. The same bedspread that left fibers in Thomas Keir's trunk. Dental records confirm her identity within 48 hours. 3 weeks after she walked into that hotel believing a Hells Angels member would save her, Sophie Laurent is finally found. But finding her body is only the beginning. Now the medical examiner will reveal exactly what Thomas Keir did to her in room 314. Now her wounds will speak the truth. April 7, 2011. The State Institute of Forensic Medicine in Copenhagen conducts a complete autopsy on Sophie Laurent's body. The official cause of death: asphyxiation due to manual strangulation. Let me explain what that means in detail. Because Thomas Keir claimed this was an accident. He claimed he was just trying to calm her down. He claimed things went too far during rough sex. The medical evidence proves he's lying. Manual strangulation is not quick. It's not accidental. It's not something that happens in a moment of panic. The pathologist documented petechial hemorrhaging. Those are tiny blood vessels that burst in the eyes and face when oxygen is completely cut off. They found extensive bruising around Sophie's neck. Deep tissue damage. Bruising to the hyoid bone in her throat. Based on the severity and pattern of the injuries, the medical examiner estimated the strangulation lasted between 2 and 3 minutes. Continuous pressure for 2 to 3 minutes. Think about that. Count to 60. That's 1 minute. Now double it. Now add 30 more seconds. That's how long Thomas Keir strangled Sophie Laurent while she fought for her life. That's not an accident. That's not panic. That's murder. Deliberate, sustained, intentional murder. But the autopsy revealed something even worse. Sophie had defensive wounds. Extensive bruising on her forearms where she tried to block him. Bruising on her wrists where he held her down. Bruising on her inner thighs. The medical examiner found evidence of recent sexual activity. But it was accompanied by internal tearing and trauma. This was not consensual. This was assault. This was rape. The forensic pathologist's report is devastating in its clinical detail. Thomas Keir lured a 19-year-old girl to a hotel room under false promises. He sexually assaulted her. She fought back. And he strangled her to death for over 2 minutes while she struggled beneath his hands. Then he wrapped her body in a bedspread. He hid her in a closet overnight. He carried her to his car. He drove her to a forest. He dug a grave. He buried her next to a lake. And then he went back to his life. Back to the clubhouse. Back to his routine. Like nothing happened. The forensic team also processes the burial site. They collect soil samples from the grave. Perfect match to the soil in Keir's trunk. They photograph tire tracks on the narrow access road leading to the site. The tread pattern matches his Volkswagen Passat exactly. Every piece of physical evidence connects Thomas Keir to Sophie Laurent's murder. There is no ambiguity. There is no reasonable doubt. There is only truth written in blood and soil and fiber and bone. September 2011. Copenhagen District Court. The trial of Thomas Keir begins. The prosecution's case is methodical and overwhelming. They don't need emotional appeals. They don't need dramatic speeches. They have science. They have evidence. They have facts that cannot be disputed. They present the digital grooming. 2 months of messages. A Hells Angels member manipulating a vulnerable 19-year-old with promises of escape and freedom. They present the hotel footage. Sophie entering alive. Sophie never leaving. Thomas leaving alone with a duffel bag. They present the forensic evidence from room 314. Blood evidence. Cadaver dog alert. The proof she died in that room. They present the vehicle evidence. Her hair in his trunk. Bedspread fibers in his trunk. Burial site soil in his trunk. They present the autopsy. The medical examiner testifies. Manual strangulation lasting 2 to 3 minutes. Defensive wounds. Evidence of sexual assault. Thomas Keir's defense team attempts to argue diminished capacity. They portray him as a man who made a terrible mistake during a sexual encounter that went wrong. They suggest his involvement in motorcycle club culture affected his judgment. The prosecution calls a psychiatric expert. The expert evaluated Keir extensively. Their conclusion: he is fully competent. He understood his actions completely. He knew right from wrong. He made calculated decisions before, during, and after the murder. This was not passion. This was not a mistake. This was predation. And then the prosecution presents a statement Thomas Keir made during his interrogation. After Sophie's body was found. After he could no longer deny what he'd done. When asked why he killed her, Thomas Keir said, "She wanted to disappear from her old life. I just helped her do that." He showed no remorse. No guilt. No understanding of what he'd taken from the world. He actually believed he'd done her a favor. November 22, 2011. After less than 3 hours of deliberation, the court returns a verdict. Guilty. Premeditated murder. The judge delivers the sentence. He cites multiple aggravating factors. The cynical grooming of a vulnerable teenager. The age gap exploitation. The abuse of trust. The extreme violence of the killing. The sexual assault. The calculated concealment and disposal of her body. Thomas Keir is sentenced to life imprisonment. Under Danish law at the time, life means a minimum of 16 years before parole eligibility. Keir does not appeal. He's led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. He doesn't look at Sophie's family. He doesn't look at anyone. The trial is over. Legally, justice has been served. But for Laurent, for Sophie's family, for everyone who loved her, justice is a word that means nothing. And Laurent sat in that courtroom every single day. She heard every detail of how her daughter died. She heard about the grooming, the manipulation, the assault, the strangulation that lasted 2 to 3 minutes, the burial in the forest. She heard all of it, every horrifying detail. And now she has to live with that knowledge for the rest of her life. After the verdict, police searched Sophie's bedroom more thoroughly. They found something and hadn't mentioned. An acceptance letter. From a design school in Copenhagen. Dated February 14, 2011. Sophie had been accepted. She'd applied secretly. She had plans. She had hope. She had a future. But she never told her mother. Because by February, Thomas Keir had already convinced her that running away with him was the only option. He'd already isolated her. He'd already made her believe that her family couldn't help her. That's what predators do. They isolate. They create dependency. They become the only solution to every problem. Sophie Laurent was 19 years old. She was struggling with depression. She felt trapped in her small town. And a 41-year-old Hell's Angels member saw that vulnerability and weaponized it. He groomed her for 2 months. He built her trust. He made promises he never intended to keep. And then he lured her to a hotel room and murdered her. In the aftermath of this case, the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club issued a rare public statement. They condemned Thomas Keir's actions. They stated that his membership was terminated effective immediately. They emphasized that violence against women is not tolerated within the organization. Whether you believe that statement is up to you. What matters is this: Thomas Keir used his motorcycle club affiliation as part of his grooming strategy. He made the club sound exciting to a desperate teenager. He used the imagery and the reputation to seem dangerous and protective at the same time. And it worked. Denmark implemented new legislation after Sophie's case. Enhanced penalties for online grooming. Mandatory age verification on certain platforms. Educational programs in schools about recognizing manipulation tactics. But none of that brings Sophie back. This case should terrify you. It should make you angry. Because investigators later discovered Thomas Keir had been simultaneously messaging at least 7 other young women online. Same tactics. Same promises. Same manipulation. Sophie Laurent wasn't his first target. And if she had somehow survived, she wouldn't have been his last. Online predators are patient. They're methodical. They spend months building trust. They study their targets. They identify vulnerabilities and exploit them with surgical precision. They isolate their victims. They create secrets. And then they strike. Sophie Laurent walked into that hotel believing she was escaping pain. Believing a man from a motorcycle club would protect her. Believing she was finally taking control of her life. Instead, she walked into a nightmare. Her last moments were terror, pain, betrayal, and desperate struggle. The bruises on her arms prove she fought. She fought as hard as a 19-year-old girl can fight against a 41-year-old man. She fought for her life. But he was stronger. And he had no intention of letting her leave that room alive. Thomas Keir is in Vridsløselil State Prison. He'll be there until at least 2027. Maybe longer. Maybe for the rest of his life. But Sophie Laurent is in Vidover Cemetery. And she'll be there forever. That's not justice. That's just the best we can do with a broken world. Remember Sophie Laurent's name. Remember her face. Remember that she was a real person with real dreams and real struggles. Remember that she was lured, groomed, assaulted, murdered, and buried by a man who used a motorcycle club's reputation to manipulate her. And remember that there are more men like Thomas Keir out there right now. Online. Messaging vulnerable people. Making promises. Building trust. Grooming their next victim. They're in motorcycle clubs. They're in offices. They're in neighborhoods. They're everywhere. Sophie Laurent trusted the wrong person. And it cost her everything. Don't let her death be meaningless. Pay attention to the people you love. Watch for warning signs. Isolation. Secrecy. Sudden personality changes. New online relationships that demand privacy. These are red flags. These are warnings. And if someone in your life is showing these signs, intervene. Ask questions. Be persistent. Be annoying if you have to. Because Sophie Loren's mother wishes she had been more annoying. She wishes she had pushed harder. She wishes she had broken into that laptop sooner. But she didn't know. How could she know? That's the cruelty of these cases. The people who love the victim never see it coming until it's too late. So be vigilant. Protect each other. And never, ever trust someone who asks you to keep secrets from the people who love you. That's how predators operate. In shadows. In secrecy. In manipulation. And Sophie Loren paid the ultimate price. If this case affected you, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss a case. And comment below telling me where you're watching from. These stories need to be told. These victims need to be remembered. Sophie Loren was 19 years old. She met a Hell's Angels member online. Days later, she vanished. Now you know what happened to her. Now make sure it doesn't happen to someone you love.